Welcome, this is Shakti Corolla Neverin and I'm an online astrologer, and I do many of forecasts here on Facebook and recordings on YouTube. So my intention is to pass the buck, to get you interested and inspired and to know a little bit more about what astrology can do for you. So today I want to talk about the upcoming full moon. So I usually do the full moon, the new moon, Mercury retrogrades, and I do a weekly forecasts for the upcoming week on Saturdays, and I do a 1-minute tidbit preparing you every day what's happening in the stars. So for all that, you can either go to my Facebook page, Astrology Forecast and More. I have so many, I have to think. So Astrology Forecast and More, so you want to sign up there. For the longer videos, it's good if you sign up for my newsletter, because then I can send you the recordings so you're free to listen to them in your own time. The good thing is when you join me live, then you can ask questions and we can have a little dialogue. And also I love to see that's actually that somebody out there enjoys what I have to offer. So please leave me your comments, make sure you like me. If you're watching this on YouTube later, you want to subscribe to the channel. So these are all good ways to stay in the loop. But if you do sign up for your newsletter, I have a gift for you. So just go to my website, maoiastrologyreading.com, and you will see. Okay, so the full moon is kind of an event we are often in touch with, even if we are not astrologically inclined, because the moon is so close, we can see it with our natural eyes. And we watch the waxing and waning throughout the months. So the full moon, we can actually really feel it. I mean, we might not sleep as well as at night. If you have a cat, they're roaming around and they're usually pretty vocal out there. The rate of criminal actions is actually higher at that night. People are more bound to get into fights and get drunk. So these are all kind of outer manifestations of the full moon energy, and depending on where that is happening in your chart, some people get stimulated more than others. So with the upcoming full moon in Gemini, people who will get mostly impacted directly is people who have any planets in Gemini or in Sagittarius. So there it kind of really activates those planets and what they symbolize for you in your chart. So the full moon is kind of a blossoming of what has started under the new moon. So the new moon is kind of a little bit less spectacular because we don't see it, and we don't feel it probably as strongly as we do the full moon. But nevertheless, the new moon is really important because it starts one circle of emotional unfoldment and maturation, as I call it. And with the full moon, that gets kind of fully into the light of consciousness, because this is really what's happening. Imagine when we have full moon, the moon reflects fully back the energy, the light, the consciousness of the sun. So that's why the full moon is considered quite an impactful and strong event, and it helps to know in which sign it is. Not only to see where it's happening in your birth chart, but also to be more self-aware of what is happening inside of you, in your inner world of emotions, how personal that is, or how much you might be picking up on what I call the morphogenetic field, the collective unconsciousness. And believe me, we all are connected, so we do pick up to the overall field of consciousness. So astrology, in my perspective, is really a wonderful way to be more aware of our own sense of self, and it's a wonderful way to pace yourself, to have what I call astrological awareness. So you know what's going on, what's coming at you in the form of energies which need to be integrated. And when I do personal forecast readings for people, I always say, imagine the planets as gods and goddesses come knocking at your door. And it's a good metaphor that at certain times in our lives, there's certain energies coming into our field, and then we have to deal with it. We have to respond. We have to start a dialogue. And again, the key is our state of consciousness. Okay, so let's dive in. The full moon is happening on the 12th at 4:06 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it's happening at 22 degrees in Gemini. So by definition, the full moon is opposed by the sun. That's why it can reflect the light as fully as possible. And this one is kind of an interesting one because the sun is still in conjunction with that Saturn in Sagittarius. So as you might know, every full moon is about integration between the sign the sun is in this case Sagittarius, and the sun the moon is in this case Gemini. So in astrology we always look at, when we have one sign and planets in one sign, we always look into what's the complementing energy. So high-end Gemini can only be high-end if it's complemented by Sagittarius. So both opposing signs always kind of complement each other and meet in the middle. That's where oneness is happening. So in Gemini, Gemini is air, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, so that's a very mental sign. So this full moon, even if the moon by definition connects us with our emotional set point, with our inner world, with our right brain, this full moon is quite mentally inspired. So with Gemini, we have a certain curiosity going into life. Gemini is really interested in learning and goes into the world with a student perspective of wanting to learn, wanting to integrate more, wanting to experience everything there is. So Gemini is very versatile, very agile, very easily adapting to circumstances. So there is a certain freshness, a certain unique, young, fresh perspective available into our own inner world, and how we filter the outer world through that emotional filter. So in your birth chart, the moon is symbolizing your emotional filter, and the sun and Mercury is symbolizing our mental filter and how we bring in the world through that. And we all know we're living in so many different worlds because we are all different people, different personalities, and our filters are built in a different way. So that's why I'm so excited about astrology, because astrology helps you to understand your filters. And so you're not just blindly reacting unconsciously to circumstances, but with astrology you really have you have a chance to consciously create the future and move towards those goals you have, because you know how to use the celestial forces as the wind in your back. And I have been doing astrology now for almost 40 years, and I'm a professional astrologer, so I do readings on Skype and online and in person here on Maui where I live. So I just love astrology. So longer I do it, so more excited and passionate I am about it. So I want to pass the bug here for you, because it's such a helpful way to really thrive in your life. So that's my intention, to help you to understand more what's going on out there, how you can take advantage of what I call the celestial waves. So I live on Maui, Hawaii, so here every child knows you can't fight a wave. So what you can do, you can learn how to surf a wave. So you stand up and it's exhilarating and it's wonderful and adventurous. And we have many vivid, passionate surface here on the island. So, but the same as with life, if we kind of have an idea what the choices are in a conscious way, and we all respond to the celestial waves coming at us, the question is just, is it more on the low end side of possibilities or on the high end side of possibilities? So I want to get you aware and able to choose and to manifest more on the high end side of possibilities. So with the Gemini moon, that would mean to open yourself up consciously to new experience, to do things differently, to get together. It's a very social, active sign. So you want to get together and maybe get together with your girlfriends or a group of friends and do a little full moon ritual. So with Mercury, because it's so mental, it's a wonderful full moon to sit down and write things out and make plans. I mean, every manifestation in the three-dimensional reality always starts out on the non-physical dimension first, which means in the realm of inspirations, ideas, and every house an architect builds has been built on paper and envisioned first. So I just want to teach you and train you how you can do that. So you might know I also are the founder of Master Astrology Academy, where I really teach you how to read a chart. So if you really want to go deeper with astrology, you can find that and out about that. I'm going to put a link down there for you. Also, I do work consciously with the energies of the gemstones, and I've written a book about a Jewelry and Gems for Self-Discovery, which is actually an introduction into astrology, and then how you can use certain gemstones in order to support certain inner aspects of your personality, of your psychodynamic aspects. So gemstones have a twofold way to work. On one hand, they have a certain frequency depending on the crystal structure, the chemical composition, the color, the rate of reflection they hold. But then also they can become an anchor. So I'm a master hypnotherapist and NLP practitioner. So in that field of work, we first of all assume that everybody always chooses the best available to them. So again, that's happening in the mind. And we also use what we call anchors. And anchors are something we can trigger to get into a certain resourceful place. So that's how I use gemstones. And just by telling you at the end of this video about the gemstone for this full moon, and if you have a stone and you meditate with it, or you have it in a piece of jewelry and you wear it unconsciously, just by getting the information once, you will be more in contact and it will become an anchor to lift your energy, your frequency. So that's why I really love to work with gemstones, because they do those two things. On one hand, they impact our energy body with their frequency, and then they can become a conscious focus point, an anchor for a certain area we want to support ourselves with a high-end light frequency. Okay, so we have talked a little bit about the Gemini on one hand. On the other hand, there is the Sagittarius, the sun. So Sagittarius is fire, is ruled by Jupiter. So we look at Sagittarius as an adventurer, the one who always wants to move out of certain limitations, who wants to expand out of the comfort zone, wants to experience something new. And this is actually where Gemini and Sagittarius really work very well together. So in a way, we could look at the full moon in Gemini, open us up emotionally towards being more curious, being more open, to allow new information to come in. So the Gemini is kind of collecting the pieces, the bits and pieces of the puzzle. And then the Sagittarius part with the Sun is kind of taking those pieces and putting them into a meaningful picture. Because Sagittarius is also the seeker, so Sagittarius is very interested into philosophy, religions, anything what we could call an underlying pattern of reality. So that's where the Sagittarius uses the Gemini who has collected the pieces, and the Sagittarius puts them together into a meaningful overall picture. So with this full moon we have Saturn in the mix. And why Sagittarius is this very expansive kind of energy, growing, always wanting something bigger, better, more successful to happen. And that's part of the energy, yes. So, but then the Saturn is just the opposite. Saturn is kind of concentrating energy into the center of things. So in the body, Saturn is our skeleton, our spine, our bones. But it's also our skin. So the skin which defines our sense of self in this body in connection to the outer world. So Saturn is that kind of bringing things into that crystallized perspective. So on the low end, Saturn is often experienced as limitations, blockages, fears, anxieties, depression. So if you ever had those feelings, right, then you could probably assume there was some kind of Saturn activation going on in your chart. But of course, all the planets and all the signs, they're never bad or useless. They're always just available for us depending on our consciousness to be displayed in the low end or the high end. So I think we can agree here the low end would be depression, fear, anxiety, things just not moving right. So I think with Saturn we really should be, and we are motivated to experience that on a higher level, where then Saturn puts himself to work. Saturn is that motion of pushing up the hill, pushing up the mountain, doing the great work, applying ourselves with discipline into something. So here with the Saturn on the Sagittarius Sun, it kind of hinders it to go too much all over the place. And this Saturn is opposing the moon in Gemini. So Saturn kind of will forces full moon energies to kind of concentrate, to settle down, to do something useful. And on one hand, the Saturn energy in connection with Gemini is kind of concentrating mentally and emotionally, because again, Gemini is so mental, but it's a Gemini moon, so it connects the consciousness, the head, the understanding with the belly and the world of feelings. So Saturn really will shed some light onto that dynamic, and I do believe that that's a very good thing. And of course, the Saturn itself is a planet which is often not very beloved because it makes us work. But if we do apply ourselves and we do the work, there's always a gift at the end of the road, or a benefit. So Saturn work is hard work, but if you have planted your fields in spring, you will have a harvest in autumn. So that's just what Saturn wants us to do. So because here it's so tied into the full moon, there might be a lot of emotional things coming up. I would say give it a week around the full moon. That's when the strongest impact is. So you might feel an emotional impact there of being scared, being anxious, and with all the political stuff going on out there, it's easy to get into that place. But again, I always talk about our personal power point is where we have the power to really change things. which is first and foremost in our own expression, our own self in the world, and how we treat others. And I do believe it's really a deep emotional need in all of us to contribute, to serve, to do something which is not only good for our own tiny little ego and individual perspective. So that's a good reminder for that. Okay, so I promised to talk a little bit about gemstones. I always do at the end of my forecasts. So have a look. This is the stone I'm going to talk about today. These are tourmaline crystals, and they're just on this chain here. So tourmaline is a wonderful stone to use around the full moon, because tourmaline is a stone which relates to all the chakras, because tourmaline can show up in all the range of colors, so it's a whole rainbow there. So I have talked at the last weekly power forecast about this week, that this week is rubellite is a good stone to help you to center in your heart, which is the middle chakra between the three uppers and the three lowers. And the rubellite is the pink tourmaline. But all the other tourmalines relate to other chakras. So whatever tourmaline you have, or maybe you find in a gem store, will be a wonderful stone to connect you, to help you with the integration, because tourmaline is very connected to our electrical processes in the body. And that's how our brain functions. It's just electrical impulses going back and forth. So tourmaline is a stone which calms down the nervous system, and in general. So and then it depends on the color which chakra is the most impacted. So yeah, just play with tourmaline a little bit. It's just a very beautiful, nurturing, wonderful stone to do that with. Okay, so if you like the video, please don't forget that. Leave me your comments. I will get back to you throughout the days, even if you not participated live here. So I always love to hear back from you. I love to hear what you want me to talk about, if you like what I'm doing. And yeah, let me know. Somebody's out there who appreciates that, and you can leave me your sun sign and any questions you have, and maybe I can give you a line or two and give you some concrete feedback there. Okay, all the best to you. Aloha from Maui, as we say here, which means I share the breath of life with you. And namaste and all the best, and make sure you sign up for my newsletter so I can keep you in the loop. All the best, and hopefully see you soon.